Well, at this time, we will be crossing over to events that will begin the funeral celebration or the funeral ceremony of the former CEO of Access Holdings, talking about Herbert Wigwe, his wife, Chizoba Wigwe, and his son, Chizi Wigwe, who unfortunately passed away in an helicopter mishap in the United States. Now, this event is happening live right now in Lagos, Nigeria, and we will be giving you live feeds now.
Their careers followed similar trajectories. They shared a deep and close friendship, built on mutual trust, which blossomed into a lifelong business partnership. In 2001, Herbert and I teamed up in an audacious move to buy their own bank, a story which has become a reference point for many young Africans across the continent. Following their successful acquisition of Access Bank, Herbert was appointed Deputy Managing Director. And over the next 11 years, the duo, as they are fondly called, worked seamlessly together, transforming the nondescript 4th Division Bank into one of Nigeria's finest and the top 5 bank in that period. Upon Aigbeje's retirement in 2013, Herbert mounted the saddle as the GMD CEO of the bank. He was given a mandate at the time to deliver the vision himself and Ike shared, to transform Access Bank and our institution into the world's most respected African bank. Under Herbert's leadership, Access Bank became Nigeria's largest bank by balance sheet size and one of Africa's top 15 financial institutions. Under his leadership, Access Bank experienced tremendous geographic expansion, getting into markets like France, the United Emirates, the United Arab Emirates, China, including our most recent approval for our subsidiary in Hong Kong. This international expansion strategy was supported by a bold inorganic growth strategy to solidify the institution's Pan-African footprint. Herbert also shepherded the Access Bank's award-winning merger with Diamond Bank. Post the merger, the institution became the largest retail bank in our market. By 2023, the institution had over 60 million in customers, making it the highest bank within the continent, given the scale and size of its customer base. Herbert bestrode the banking industry like a titan. There's no denying that fact. So much so that he was named Africa Banker of the Year 2 consecutive years in 2021, 2020, and 2021. I think he deserves to be acknowledged for that. Herbert's concern for the industry was not just limited to Access Bank. As the chairman body of bank CEOs, he was responsible for coordinating the industry's response to several national challenges. And believe me, in this period, there were several challenges that the sector faced. In 2022, Herbert was appointed the pioneer CEO of Access Holdings Company, which commenced with an initial focus on the pension sector. Within just 2 years, Access Pension has now become the second largest pension company in our country. Herbert was a true philanthropist. He maintains the bank's corporate citizenship status with a focus on the earth, healthcare, and education, with a passion and commitment that made a national impact through programs and interventions that include the Lagos Access Bank City Marathon, ArtX Lagos, and the UNICEF Access Bank partnership that was targeted at improving the quality of education to thousands of poor and vulnerable children across Nigeria, as well as South Africa, if I might add. He also co-led the Coalition Against COVID, a private sector task force in partnership with the federal government, NCDC, and WHO, with the sole aim of combating the very feared COVID pandemic crisis that Nigeria had at the time. In 2016, in furtherance of his commitment to philanthropic pursuits, he set up his personal foundation, the How Foundation, with a focus on education, health, and youth empowerment. The foundation has adopted 23 primary health centers in each local government of Rivers State. In partnership with the Private Sector Health Alliance, thank you. In partnership with the Private Sector Health Alliance of Nigeria, Herbert has prepared himself for the life beyond profits. Licensed in 2023 by the Nigerian University Commission, Herbert's dream of establishing the Wigwe University was born. The university was set up with an aim to building a fearless generation of world-class university graduates who would excel as entrepreneurs, leaders, and innovators. His vision was that there's no reason why the continent should be left behind because we just had a poor educational system. He was willing to put his money where his mouth is. Herbert got married to his heartthrob, Chizoba Dorin Wigwe, in Lagos in November 1995. He used to refer to her as the most beautiful. And so she certainly is, and I believe was. They were blessed with wonderful children. The first child, Chizi, a spitting image of Herbert, while Tochi, his second child, is Chizoba's carbon copy. A graduate of Georgetown University, Chizi was, and he followed his father's footsteps with a career in finance as an employee of AFC. Tochi, with degrees from NYU and Imperial College London, has also commenced a career in banking. However, Herbert and Chizoba, for their love of kids, were not done yet with child rearing. After a 10-year break, they added David, Anna, and their last child, Okachi, to the Wigwe clan. Herbert demonstrated extraordinary dedication to family, never failing to prioritize their needs and desires. From the earlier stages of each child's life, he was there to witness every milestone, offering guidance, support, and encouragement along the way. Despite the demands of his ever-expanding commitments, he never hesitated to set out precious time for his wife, children, and his larger family. His commitment to young people extended well beyond his nuclear family. Herbert had a vision to adopt 1 million children. I think at the last count, he started with 30,000. And he always teased me to say, someday, we'll have a nation where everybody is a Wigwe. Herbert is widely recognized and celebrated for his service to banking and the humanity. In 2023, President Mohamed Buhari honored him with the National Award of Commander of the Federal Republic, an award he truly deserved. The same year, the Rivers State government also honored him with Rivers Gold Star Service Award. It's an honor reserved It's an honor reserved for an indigene of the state who has excelled in his or her field of endeavor. And Herbert was a true shining star and a great representation of not only the Wigwe family, the Isiokpo committee, the Kwere local government, Rivers State, Nigeria, and of the black race, if I must add. In 2018, Herbert was also awarded with the Honorary Doctor of Business Administration by his alma mater, the University of Nigeria, for his outstanding contribution to Nigeria. Herbert was also bestowed with the fellowship from the Chartered Institute of Bankers, as well as the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. And also it was chartered with a fellow of the Institute of Credit Administration. Sadly, in the morning of Saturday, February 9, 2024, Herbert, along his wife, Chizoba, his first son, Chizi, and 3 others were involved in a helicopter accident in California, USA. Herbert and his wife have survived Herbert and his wife are survived by 4 children, Tochi, David, Anna, Ukachi, in addition to his 8 parents and siblings. Thank you very much.
I imagine that this evening is going to be challenging for a few of our speakers. We encourage everyone to encourage them as they come up here to speak. It is quite a loss to our nation. You see, Herbert Wigwe wasn't just a man. He was more than just the jobs he worked and the things that he did. Herbert Wigwe was the embodiment of values and ideas that as a nation, though we face challenges, though things come against us, though we don't come from the backgrounds that we want, we may not live in the neighborhoods that we aspire to, as a nation, we can remain unbowed, unbent, unbroken. We don't have to stop because we were told to. We can still achieve the things that we aspire to. And so today we're going to take our time to celebrate his life, not just at the tail end of it with all the great achievements, but we want to go right from the beginning, from his early days as a young man, and just contextualize the stages of his life till we come to the point that we sent him on. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what tonight is about, celebrating the life of Herbert Wigwe.
Now, as Roosevelt read his citation, one couldn't but wonder and imagine what a man, what an extraordinary man. I'm sure that the brief, if I dare so, citation he read out hasn't captured fully the essence and achievements of Herbert Wigwe. But how can you capture the life of such a man? However, there's something that he used to say when he was here with us. he would say excellence or nothing. And so tonight, we are determined to celebrate him excellently or nothing. And so join us as we go through his different parts and chapters of this great man. The first chapter we're going to be opening tonight is young Herbert. It's almost difficult to imagine him as a young man because it seems like he was born with great dreams, conquering and just excelling. However, let's take a look at his life as a young man. And to do this for us, we'll have from his alma mater, his secondary school, Federal Government College, Warri, a representative in the person of Henrietta.
I beg to stand on existing protocol. My name is Henrietta Wigwe, and I'm standing here as the chairperson of Federal Government College, Warri, Old Students Association, class set of 82. Herbert was our classmate. I still can't believe that I'm standing here to give a tribute to Herbert. He's our late brother, a friend. I'm still so shaken, but I guess it is what it is. You know, I woke up thinking that this is not real, that it's a bad dream and I'm going to wake up. But alas, it is true. Herbert exemplified many things, and it was different things to different people. He had many constituencies. He had his family, he had his colleagues, he had his schoolmates, he had church, he had different parts, and he juggled his constituencies so well. So I have known Herbert for 46 years. He joined us in 1978 in our Form 2. His father moved him from Federal Government College, Sokoto, and he came to Federal Government College, Warri. And when he joined us, he displayed certain character traits which distinguished him and set him on the path of greatness from an early stage. So I stand here before you to celebrate Herbert. It's not about how long he lived, but how well he lived. Herbert lived a great life. Number one, vision. Herbert always knew what he wanted to become and was prepared to follow that path. I remember in our Form 3 when we had to choose our subjects. A lot of my classmates went the path of engineering and architecture. So they chose their subjects: physics, chemistry, biology, technical drawing. But Herbert was the only one who kept saying, let's study economics so that we can run this nation together. At that age, think about it, all right? And indeed, he studied what he wanted to study, and he came out and he ran a bank, and Access Bank is one of the banks that is systemically important in our country, Nigeria. So Herbert was visionary. Intellect. Herbert was exceptionally intelligent person, and he knew it. He was very conscious of the fact that he carried a gift, and he did not want his gift to go to waste. For this reason, no matter how much Herbert played, he would always make sure that his grades brought him within the top 3 in the class. That was always the minimum standard he would permit himself. From time, Herbert was obsessive about knowledge. He was a true scientist, an intellectual. I will never give up until he got the answers to the many questions brimming in his young mind. In fact, Herbert went into legend in FGC Warri because he refused to give up on a mathematical equation which had defied everyone. He refused to rest until he solved the equation. And when he finally presented the correct answer, and we asked him, "Oh boy, how did you do it?" And he replied, "It was only logical." But beyond academic intelligence, Herbert was also gifted with an acute social and emotional intelligence. He knew how to connect to people. He made them feel at ease in his presence. He will place a demand on you to bring out the gifts he saw hidden in you. He will always find time to reach out and make you feel as though you were siblings, even if not from the same parents. He will rejoice with you, he will cry with you, and he was always there. Number 3, passion. Herbert was very passionate. Beneath his ready smile, his infectious humor was a will as strong as steel. His genius was only given expression because he had the drive to work extra hard, to burn the midnight oil, and to fearlessly go where no one had gone before. Herbert will always avoid confrontation, choosing rather to negotiate and apply wisdom in problem solving. However, when all else fails, he will stand his ground, and he was fearless. I'll tell you a story. Herbert was in schoolhouse when we were in the boarding school. And you know, at that time, in the 70s, we had some few bullies in school. So there was a bully in Herbert's house, in his room, who was always terrorizing the young ones. So one day he had the misfortune of meeting Herbert. He slapped Herbert and then told him to kneel down. You know what Herbert did? Herbert charged at this gentleman, this bully. You know, he clung himself on the man with his hands and his legs. It's like an octopus embracing something. Now, this bully was trying to maneuver to punch Herbert, but there was no room. Herbert just held him, and we called it the great choke. Until the seniors started begging, and then his classmates, these other seniors, had to literally yank Herbert out of the guy. So Herbert released him and told him, "Don't try me again." And indeed, that senior never tried Herbert again. So when we asked Herbert, "Where did you learn how to wrestle like this?" He said that they lived in Port Harcourt as children, and his father took him most weekends to Isiokpo to take part in the traditional Ikwere wrestling competitions. Herbert was like Isiburu, Ekwere the crab, in that book written by Elechi Amadi titled Isiburu. He was self-disciplined, he was determined, he was loyal. In fact, if Herbert is in your corner, you can go to sleep. Consistent, dependable. When we were in class 3, we lost a classmate. And back then, back in the day, there was really no counseling for young people when there's bereavement of that kind. And this guy was Herbert's best friend. There were three of them, Herbert and these two gentlemen. Samuel died, and we never had closure. You won't believe that over 40 years later, Herbert being a CEO of one of the largest banks in Nigeria, Herbert and the second friend contacted his late friend's sisters and wanted to know where the grave of their friend was, because they wanted to go and pay their respects that they could not pay when we were young and in school. It's amazing. In 2018, our class members association was formed. And we reached out to every member who passed through that school. When Herbert heard, because we're kind of giving him a bit of space at that time because we knew he was busy, but as soon as he heard that we had that group, you know, he said to some of my classmates, who is the head? And they told him. And he called me up. Henrietta, this is my right. I want to be in that group. And he became part of that group. And I tell you, he wasn't contributing by posting on that group, but Herbert read everything we wrote on that WhatsApp group. Because occasionally he will call me, Henrietta, what was that thing they were talking about? You know, how do we help this person? He was close to our group. As a group, we set up a trust fund to support our classmates. I mean, we know that everyone can be equal. And the objective was to support our mates who had financial or any kind of difficulty. And we had that trust fund. Herbert contributed to that trust fund. And not just that, when we're having our reunions, he also was involved in that. And when he's with us, he became that vulnerable teenager
Excellencies, my dear brothers and sisters, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. From him we come, to him we shall return. I met Herbert sometimes in 1988 when Herbert reported for duty in Cooper's Library. Then I also newly qualified then as a chartered accountant. And Herbert was brought to Cooper's by his father, Pastor Shingle Wigwe. It was a faithful Friday, and I was going to the mosque, so I was wearing the traditional Hausa dress. So when they saw me on the ground floor, they asked me, where is Chief Oke's office? Then Oke was our partner. I said, it's on the 5th floor. And I was already on the ground floor. They said, can you show us? I said, it's on the 5th floor. The father said we should go to the 5th floor. So I had to walk again to the 5th floor and pass by. Then Auntie Mo's office was somewhere as you climb onto the 5th floor. And I showed them the office. So they entered the office, and I went to the mosque and came back. So when I came back, I was sitting in the waiting room. And they finished. Even then, Herbert came with 2 books. I saw him holding 2 books. One was GMAT, and one was question and answers in financial accounting. So I said, what are you doing with this kind of books? Herbert said he thought he's coming for a written exam. That means Herbert must have prepared and was still holding those books for revision. When they finished and they were going, Pastor Shingle now called me and said, this guy is your brother. Hold him. So he gave me Herbert as my brother, as a friend. And since then, till that faithful day that Herbert died, we have been together. So from that day, Herbert, I knew him as a very, very hardworking guy. He said he wants to qualify within this first year. I said, but you are doing just your NYSC now. He said, no, he wants to attend the exam. Herbert was enrolled, and first sitting, Herbert passed ICANN exam. After qualifying, we were thinking of what to do next. I said I was tired of practice. He said he was also thinking of making some good money somewhere. I said, how? They are recruiting in CBN. We should go to CBN. He said, no. I go to CBN. He is going to GT Bank. I said, how are you going to GT Bank? He said he has already written the exam somewhere, but I should not tell anybody. So things go on and on and on, and I was in CBN. Again, one day, in CBN, I was then assistant manager licensing. Herbert made me. He said they want to acquire Access Bank. I said, how? He said it's already in advanced stage. I said, how do you do it? He said I should just cooperate and... So things go on and on and on. And one thing I can say is Herbert is a risk taker. Herbert can take any kind of risk. Herbert can approach any kind of problem and solve that problem, even when you are running away from that problem. Herbert and I acquired this bank, took it from nothing to where this bank is today. After making it one of the biggest banks in Nigeria, expanded the bank and make it a very dependable bank, not only in Nigeria or around Africa, but all over the world. May his gentle soul rest in peace.
Thank you very much. We thank you, Senator, His Excellency Senator Ibrahim Hassan Dankwambo. Please put your hands together for him one more time.
Now, many people who knew Herbert and loved him know that he had a love for classical music. And so next, we're going to have a classical piece performed by Shalom, Jerusalem, the Holy City.
Last night I lay sleeping, there came a that would not pass away. It was the New Jerusalem that would
I think they did a fantastic job. I think we can appreciate Shalom one more time for that beautiful rendition of Jerusalem, the holy city. There's still talks about I would say fact, but stand to be corrected, that it takes the higher and finer amongst us to appreciate classical music, and Herbert was definitely someone who appreciated classical music.
Earlier on, we opened the chapter, Herbert, the young Herbert. It's time to open the chapter of Herbert, the banker. We have heard the stories of how he's etched his name on the histories of time when it comes to banking in Nigeria and on the African continent. We heard the story earlier on of how he, alongside his close friend and now brother Ike, took the audacious step to acquire Access Bank in 2001, at the time a 4th division bank, and growing it to be top 5 in terms of the best bank in Nigeria and top 15 on the African continent. Over the years, he has made his mark in the banking industry in Nigeria, and tonight we want to take time out to celebrate Herbert, the banker.
And as we do that, although many people around the country know him for his work with Access, the truth is many banking stories and the stories of many banks could not be written today without mentioning the name Herbert Wigwe. And to help us bring that more to light, we'd like to welcome someone whose path crossed with his, somewhere in the midst of her 24 illustrious years of work with GT Bank. Please put your hands together as you make welcome Kathy Echeozo.
May we please kindly remind our speakers that we have 2 minutes each for each person who comes here, as we have quite a number of people to get through. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, friends and family of the Wigwes. I've known Herbert since the early 1990s. We are part of that initial squad that resumed at Guaranty Trust Bank in the early 90s. We called him Herbie D. We pondered the streets, searching for business, and spent long days and nights learning, strategizing, and driving the business. In those days, one needed to have intellect, energy, and integrity to survive more than a few weeks at Guaranty Trust. If any one of the three was missing, almost certainly it will indeed be a very brief stay at the Plaza head office. Herbie D spent over 10 years and had a brilliant career at Guaranty Trust, rising to the unique and top level of the first directors selected by the founders of the bank, Fola and Tayo, to take the institution to the next level. Herbie D earned his spot because he was a bold and hardworking achiever in the bank. I recall some memorable moves. One Monday, when we resumed work after a long weekend, Herbie D casually announced on the Plaza shop floor that he had spent the break in India. He got information and pursued a defaulting borrower of his all the way to India, tracking him through some narrow alleyways in the town where the customer was until he found him. Don't hold your breath for scene 2 of the drama. It suffices to state that Herbie D was confident and bold. Herbie D was never invited to face Uncle T at the dreaded CAC meetings where delinquent loans were discussed, all because he was diligent in lending and self-driven to collect whatever he loaned. One significant contribution of Herbert to the success of GT Bank were his customer sign-ons. The first sign-on of a major oil and gas multinational in the bank was by Herbert. In the 1990s, GT Bank was a modest new generation bank. To attempt to onboard a multinational oil-producing company was audacious. Herbie D got to work. He closely marked the local treasury team of the corporation, made great friends with them, often using his personal resources to bond over Friday night drinks. He reached the head office team where the approval would come from. He tenuously presented the services and products I had for them and arranged management meetings until they completed and sent in those account opening forms. Herbert was an AGM at the time and got the trophy for making it happen from his sheer tenacity and boldness. The competitive banking environment sometimes led to tension between marketing officers in their quest to onboard accounts. When Herbert and I worked together in the corporate bank business of the bank, there were 3 corporate bank groups, each facing a different market segment. Herbert always stayed in his lane and ran fast and boldly to onboard the businesses in his segments. He played fair. Not once did he squabble with other relationship managers over who should market a customer. Smartly, he used his energy to drive his business, not to play games or internal politics. He would sometimes stop by my office to discuss MPR, especially when the numbers were not looking good for the month. He would say, the cards, meaning me, and money never complete. So when the bank's MD and DMD merged all 3 corporate bank groups into one, it wasn't a surprise that Herbert was appointed head of the corporate bank group, a critical group in the bank. In line with audacious personality, in 2002, he moved on at the peak of his promising career at GT Bank to become a co-founder at Access Bank. Beyond working closely together at GT Bank, continue to collaborate in the industry. Most recently, with both Access and GT becoming holding companies. Last year, I reached Herbert to discuss developing issues in the non-banking financial sector. I needed urgent, high-level intervention. It's incomprehensible. I can no longer call him or text him. Totally surreal. I'm personally so proud of the world-class university Herbert is developing in Isiokpo, Port Harcourt, Rivers State, Nigeria. I expressed my pride about the project in a conversation with a good friend of mine just this past January. I said it was his legacy, just as many renowned institutions and the legacy of founders like Stanford, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon, and so on. I wish that we would all establish our own legacies according to our capacities and God-given talents. Dear friends and family of Herbert Wigwe and everybody, let us not try to understand this catastrophe. We can't. Let us deepen our prayer lives. Let us pray for their souls. Let us pray for the 2 mummies and daddy they left behind, their children, their siblings, and other family and friends. Let us mourn. Let us pray for all who mourn. Let us pray for ourselves. Let us pray for our various communities and our country. This will give us relief, strength, and a better tomorrow. May God have mercy, as indeed He's a God of mercy. Thank you.
We appreciate Kathy Achoso for that moving speech.
Thank you very much, Cassie. Herbert, having returned from his Chevening Scholarship in the UK, came back to be Deputy Manager, Corporate Banking Division at GT Bank. And so you would understand just the deep memories and times shared with him at his time at the bank. The next person we're inviting on stage is a man who shares some similarities with Herbert. One is that they both worked at GT Bank. The other is that individually, they rose to become CEO of their banks, GT Bank and Access Bank respectively. In addition to that, they also rose to becoming the CEO of the holding company when the banks became holdcos. And so at this point, I'd like to invite on stage to speak a few words about his memories and his time with Herbert is Segun Agbaje, Group Chief Executive Officer, GT Holdings.
Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a very difficult day. Herbert was my colleague, friend, competitor, and brother. Only Herbert could have been all those things to a human being. That was the breath the gentleman had. We started as colleagues. I met Herbert November 1991. We were both in the corporate bank. This gentleman walked in, didn't take off his jacket because we all had our jackets on, but that was Herbert. He was going to do it his own way. He drove a red Golf. Who drives a red Golf? Only a man who's that brazen drives around in a red Golf. Very quickly, Herbert earned our respect. Herbert was one of the cleverest people in Guarantee Trust Bank. He was a credit analyst. But that's not what got him his respect, because we were all good analysts. But Herbert had what we all didn't have. He had the power to chase accounts, network, and deliver things that we all couldn't. We had another brother who was the treasurer of the bank, Ige Mokwede, who basically, if you know banking, the treasurer owns the bank. And we would have regular fights, but Herbert would never join us. He had no interest in treasury, and all he cared about, as Kathy said, was his own corporate bank and his income. Having earned our respect, Herbert then became my friend, a real friend. We went in and out of each other's houses. I go on Festival Road. Again, when people talk about the courage of Herbert, Herbert's first flat was in Victoria Island. Most of us, we couldn't even move out of home. And so when we got there again, he had done something none of us could do. Maybe it was coincidence, but most people might not know. Herbert's first flat was next door to the old Access Bank head office next to Intercontinental. Maybe it was Providence, and he knew he would one day buy that bank. So we were friends. We all got married in the bank, had our children in the bank. Herbert was always there for you as a friend, always had a listening ear. And so he became my friend, and we rose. Myself, him, and I became executive directors on the same day. The thing about that position is you were then sent to Harvard for 3 months. Mistake. You never came back from that course the same person. Ige and Herbert came back and they had bigger dreams than the bank. And so they bought their own bank. Thankfully, one of us stayed, maybe the cowardly one. And so I stayed behind. And in the years when they built Access Bank, if you know us well, we compete. And so we became very fierce competitors. They decided they were going to build the best bank, and I decided that we're not going to build a better bank than I ran. And so we fought furiously, but never poorly or never badly. And then as we all matured, Herbert became my brother, a real brother. Herbert always had time. He would always make the phone call you needed to get you out of sports and bubble. It's weird. My last conversation with him was 2 weeks before he died. He came to my house like he sometimes pops by. He talked about nothing but this university. This was his obsession. And the only thing he asked me was would I sponsor some ignorant students? And I made him that promise that I would. I have but one little comfort, by the way, when I think of Herbert, is that Herbert packed into 57 years what most exceptional people will never pack into 2 lifetimes. Rest in peace, my friend, my brother.
Thank you very much, Mr. Segun Agbaje. We hear that Herbert and Segun had nicknames for each other. They both called each other Koshebinu, and loosely translating to doesn't get offended or doesn't get angry. So they shared quite a deep relationship. So thank you for paying tribute to your colleague and also friend.
You could hear the admiration that he had for Herbert, and it was a mutual admiration that Herbert had for him. Both of them have done phenomenal things in the banking sector, and it was a peer type of relationship. The next gentleman I'm going to introduce experienced Herbert not just in that regard, but also when you work with someone very closely and they have visions and they refer to you as a warrior and they expect you to behave as a warrior, you also get warrior treatment. So he will tell us his own experience of Herbert as he was representing the bank as MD in Ghana to Access Bank. Please put your hands together for Dolapo Ogundimu.
Again, a gentle reminder for all our speakers to kindly keep to the 2 minutes allocated time so that we're able to hear from as many people as possible. Thank you very much.
I never thought I would stand on this podium to talk about Herbert this way, but it is what it is. I met Herbert, I think in 1989. We were both young account officers in Capital Merchant Bank. There were 4 of us, myself, Herbert Wigwe, Oke Okuzu, and one gentleman called PC Wakwo. When Herbert talks, he always says one of the things he learned during those days of tutelage was that he learned how not to run a failed bank, because we saw a lot of things while we were there. So one summer's day, the chairman calls us into his office and told us that this gentleman sitting in the chair in front of him was a chief in his village, and we should give him a facility. Okay? So we went back downstairs and wondering how we were going to go about this. And the gentleman came to our office. And we gave him a list of the things he needed to bring: his profile, his MEWAT, his accounts, a long list. And the man went back to the chairman, executive chairman, and told him that he doesn't understand what his boys are talking about. And chairman called us to his office, that we've embarrassed him. And he said something that stood with Herbert and myself for a very long time, that never in our lives should we ever, he repeated it, never in our lives should we ever counter any instruction he gives us. That day, we went back to the office, and Herbert said He had seen a lot of things in his life. He received a lot of threats. Nobody had ever threatened his life on this job. In fact, Dolapo, I'm not doing it again. So we had a boss called Tutu Shule then. We went up to see her and told her what the chairman said. And Herbert said, he's not doing it again. If this is the kind of banking that this man wants to do, he wants to kill his bank, he's not part of it. He's not doing it again. That's how Herbert left Capital. I left the following day. So as God will have it, in those days that we market, we had a boss called Tayo Adeoyokun. That time, he used to run a shop called First Marina. So during our lunch time, we normally stop by his office just to talk about banking, about life, and generally. So he got to know Herbert because Tayo was my boss when I was in Continental. So just about the time we left Capital Merchant Bank was when GT Bank started. And naturally, I started in GT Bank, and Herbert went to Wales to do his master's. I think he came back about 18 months later. When he came back, came in his red Golf, the same Golf, and said, so what's up? I said, okay, so we're here, GT Bank has just started, what's he going to do? He said he wants to work now. So we went up to Uncle T. Uncle T, you remember Herbert? He said, yes, he remembers Herbert. At that time, we used to be a three-man team. One of our colleagues, Kule Fashiro, dropped and he finished his national service, so we became two. Antimo was our group head, was our unit head at that time. So we were looking for a third person to join the team. So Tayo said, but you guys need somebody. So if Herbert is available, why doesn't he join you? And that's how Herbert came to Aseba without any interview and anything. There's a fun part to Herbert that could be very, very funny. I remember those days, our managing directors were using Honda Accords, both the managing director and the deputy managing director. Then I bought this black Honda. Town, went to the waterside. We even took a boat and went to the various villages. And when we came back, his uncle asked us how we spent the day. We went to the villages. He asked us whether we were mad. Then the following week, it was my turn to take my own Honda. I said, we're going to go to Ijebode. And my wife said she was going to follow us that day. So when we got to the toll gate, we saw this Mercedes-Benz that was bashed. And we were arguing along the way that nobody in a serious mind drives the Mercedes-Benz that is bashed around. But somewhere along the line, on the Sagamu Expressway, apparently they were armed robbers and they were trying to stop us. So Herbert was in front, my wife was at the back. While I was busy concentrating on how to escape, my wife noticed Herbert bending down in the car, struggling, and she asked Herbert, what's going on? Herbert said he's transferring his money into his socks. So that when, in the case they take the car, at least we'll have money to find our way back to Lagos. So luckily they didn't take the car, and we laughed it off. But that was Herbert for you. Herbert was always speaking ahead. Always speaking ahead. Just like Kathy said, The day he came into the office and said he went to India to pursue the customer, we were all stunned. Herbert went with his own resources to pursue this guy, because we all knew the guy at that time. And I handed over that desk to him, and I warned him about that guy. And because I warned him, he knew the consequences if he goes to the Precise Asset Committee to go and defend why that credit went bad. Herbert on his own, with his own resources, went to India to go and pursue this guy. I can't believe it. I'm not sure I could have done it. I'm not sure I've met somebody who could have done that kind of thing. So when I started working in Access Bank, I tell my colleagues and those that work with me that, please, if you want to go and have a presentation and you want to stand in front of Herbert, please, this is the type of person Herbert is. Do not tell him it's not possible. Please, do not take no for an answer. You must go the extra mile to make sure you deliver. That's what Herbert demanded of all of us. Please, honestly, I can go on. I can go on forever. All I know is that his memory will be a blessing to all of us. He's a great guy, we're going to miss him. But the commitment I'm making here is that the good work he started, which he didn't finish, we will make sure in our lifetime we continue and try to finish as much of it. God help us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dolapo Ogudimo, for sharing your moments with Herbert. And just to mention that Mr. Ogundimo is MD of Access Bank in Ghana. And Herbert, whilst with us, led a number of human beings, thousands across the African continent, 28,000. Now, he wasn't just a leader or just an employer. He was a leader in the true sense of the word, because he raised other leaders like himself. He was passionate about building people, and he enjoyed a great relationship with members of his team at different levels in the banking system and also in the holdco. So we celebrate that, we honor his leadership traits, and we thank him very much for being an exemplary leader.
It's all right to celebrate him. You know, having risen to the heights that he has, you see different traits that have helped along his journey of success. And one of the things that you see very quickly about Herbert and Igboje is their ability to relate with just about anybody, their ability to connect with people. And they've taken that gift, that skill of being people's people, you know, the people that know everybody, that can connect everybody, into business. And now they've managed their customers in a way that that is just admirable. And to speak about that customer relationship, we'd like to invite the CEO of MTN Nigeria, Mr. Carl Toriola, to come say a few words about the relationship he had with Herbert and with Access. Please put your hands together for him as he makes his way up here.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we wish we would be gathering in better circumstances. Herbert and I intersected in our lives on 2 occasions. Somewhere around 93, 94, I was a young one, doing my NYC in Port Harcourt. He was a bit older than me. Uche Wigwe was a bit younger than me, and we had a crew of friends, Adoke, Bodiayo. So I met him very likely then, in a social manner. Our future meetings was in somewhat more tense circumstances, in a bit of a butting of heads between the banking industry and the telecoms industry. And Herbert and I tested ourselves, and we had a bit of a battle. But he was always professional and he was always polite. And after the battle was over, he invited Roosevelt and myself to Capital Club to make peace. And that was the beginning of a friendship that blossomed in so many ways. He visited my home several times, met my daughter Damilola and my wife Ronke. And as I got to know him better and better, I said one thing. I said, you see those Access boys, they're going places. They were already well established, but the intensity and ferocity in which that organization was run by all of the people that built it was incredible. Eventually, everybody in my house was using Access Bank as their bank account, and I was advocating for all the staff of MTN to open Access Bank accounts. That tells you the kind of relationships that we built. It was a deep personal relationship that grew over time. On the 16th of August 2023, my wife lost her brother to cancer. And Herbert was chasing some transaction, I think in South Africa. He had to see the Central Bank Governor, and he called and he said, I can't be there, but you will see us. And as we walked into the church for the beginning of the service, Roosevelt was right at the front, which meant he had got there well ahead of the time and was with us until the end of the proceedings. And Herbert was calling, expressing his sympathies. One thing that touched me about Herbert was his generosity to people, the larger society, his children, everyone that he met. We became good friends. Every time he came to my house, he drank my most expensive cognac, which I'd been saving for about 5 years, and promised me that I would drink the same with Atedo Peterside, and it would be even more expensive, but unfortunately that opportunity never came. The story about the customer in India is urban legend. I've heard it was in Singapore, on the nightclub, on the top floor of a nightclub. I've heard it was in Lebanon. It seems the real version is it's in there, but it is urban legend in the banking circles. Herbert became such a friend that we attended so many functions together. I remember about 2 years ago, he said, I must, together with Ralph Mopita, my group CEO, who's standing here, sitting here and flew specifically for this event, we must attend the polo. And I still have this picture of myself, Ralph, Herbert, of course, right at the middle, Ike, Igus, and Roosevelt. And it just breaks my heart when I see this. To Herbert's daughter, Tochi, to David, to Hannah, to Okachi, he adored you. And I think above everything else, he wants you to be happy. I will close my very small tribute, and I try to save a bit of time, in saying one thing to all of us here. You die twice. Once when you lose your body, the second when people stop speaking your name. Let us speak Herbert's name every day. Remember him every day until the day we leave this earth. Farewell, my good friend.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, but above all, Herbert's family. And I hope that they take away from this evening just a glance and a feeling for the man that Herbert was, is, and still will live with all of us. I had the privilege of first meeting Herbert in September 2001 at Harvard on the PMD program that's been referred to. That was a unique experience, I have to say. I'd not come across someone that exuded such confidence, backed up by intellect and emotional connections that are hard to properly put words to. But alongside that, he had a hugely mischievous nature. He had a laugh that would light the room up. And I guess the best example I can come up with, we had a Roman toga party. So we were dressed in sheets, sat next to each other, with music going on in the background, while we were having quite an intensive conversation around Nigerian politics and the way that things needed to change. And I found the experience quite surreal, not least that it went on for a long time, until Herbert had convinced me that he was absolutely right in every respect, which in fairness he was at the end of the conversation. What I didn't realize then, that Herbert had specifically gone to Harvard to be ready with Ike to buy into what was then a very small Nigerian bank, which was the foundation for the access we currently know, with more to come. 6 years later, I came across Herbert again. I was approached by a third party mentioning Access Bank. I didn't realize at the time that Herbert was involved. And I hadn't been to Nigeria before, and it piqued my curiosity. I should have known better than to jump on a plane with an open mind and then meet Herbert in persuasive mode, I think it would be fair to say. And one of the best decisions I ever made, to have the pleasure in a very small way to be part of the Access family. Herbert and I were committed to making sure that we blazed a trail when it came to the UK. We still hold the record of being the quickest authorised bank that has ever happened in the UK, and that was down to Herbert's leadership. As we stand here now, we have grieving families within Access in the UK, in Dubai, in Hong Kong, in France, and in Malta. And it speaks to the man that Herbert is, that everybody feels his loss deeply, acutely, and it will never fully leave us. It's the impact that Herbert had on all of us in different ways. Dolapo mentioned the role that we have as Access warriors. And it's important that when we talk about legacy, we honour what's been achieved so far, but be under no doubt that that is not the end of the journey. We were fortunate to have Herbert amongst us professionally. We will never have the attributes that he has, but we have the benefit of working alongside him for a prolonged period of time. We have the benefit of knowing the vision that he had for Access. Access will continue to grow, his legacy will continue to grow, and we will make him proud. Amen to Herbert.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jamie Simmons. The beauty of having someone like Herbert at the helm of affairs in any establishment is that he was, as much as he was a gentleman, he was ferocious about enforcing values. So whether it's Ghana, whether it's the UK, whether it's Nigeria, all Access is full of warriors who make things happen and have achieved many, many, many firsts. So we appreciate once more, Mr. Jamie Simmons. Thank you so much for bringing us up to speed with all the great achievements that have happened in Access Bank UK.
Truly, Ike, Access Nation is trans-border, no borders as we extend beyond just Nigeria and the African continent, but as we've heard, to the Asian market and also the European market and beyond. Next, to speak about his own memories and experience with Herbert Wigwe, we have the President and Chairman of Council, CIBN, of whom Herbert was a fellow. Can we please make welcome Ken Okpara,
and we had a guest speaker that spoke. A lot of people applauded the speaker. You must be courageous. You must exude confidence. You need as much as possible to imbibe that character. And so that's about Herbert, speaking it the way it is, and also very courageous and fearless. He remains a beacon of light and hope. Was a top-notch professional banker with sterling qualities. He worked tirelessly and made very significant contributions to the growth and development of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, the banking industry, and the entire economy. Herbert served as a member of the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria and the chairman of the Body of Bank CEO for 3 consecutive terms, making him the only bank, making him the only bank CEO to have served 3 times. Herbert was an advocate of change. In his capacity as the chairman of the Body of Bank CEO, we cannot forget in a hurry his pivotal role in galvanizing the industry to provide succor for Nigerians during the COVID, where he led the industry to donate a total of 8.6 billion to support Nigerians during that COVID era. During Herbert as the chairman of Body of Bank CEO. It's on record that during his tenure and also under his leadership, Access Bank produced unprecedented 4,660 chartered bankers between 2018 and 2022. Again, that made him to be the only CEO that had produced that level of strength. Herbert, with his ingenuity, brought innovative dimension, the hosting of the 14th Annual Banking and Finance Conference, where he served as the chairman of the consultative committee. It's on record that he attracted Nigeria, and then the second in Rwanda, that's Paul Kagame, and also the vice president at the single event, the only chairman that has done so.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, so Herbert was relentless, he was restless, but he was also fearless. I think it's important in celebrating him to understand that he had relentless determination. His ambition, he was restless because he needed to achieve. And he was fearless in his belief that there were no challenges that he could not surmount. He was relentless in his pursuit of excellence. He didn't do anything in half measures. He was restless, constantly looking for the next opportunity, not pulling his punches in identifying the opportunities. He was never content to simply coast. And more importantly, in the period that I knew Herbert as chairman of Access Bank, Herbert and I would always set what we considered to be audacious targets. Targets that looked extremely impossible to achieve, but we worked 5 to 10 years ahead, and every time we got to the end of that period, we suddenly looked back and we had achieved those targets. They didn't come easily, but they came all the same. So fear was something that did not exist in Herbert's vocabulary. He was fearless in his belief that he could achieve. But one of the things that I would like to celebrate the most about Herbert. So everybody talks about education, and we talk about education because we talk about Wigwe University. But that's not really the essence of Herbert, at least with respect to education. The essence of Herbert was his deep love of education that he wanted his children to achieve. He wanted them to go to the best schools in the world. He wanted them to be very like him. The essence of Herbert was his deep love of education that he wanted his children to achieve. He wanted them to go to the best schools in the world. He wanted them to be very like him. And I remember when our children were taking SAT and SSAT tests, and Tochi is smiling already. You would think that it was Herbert that was taking the test, because he was there reading the text. He was there almost literally, if they allowed him to sit with them during the test, he would have sat in the room. But it was important to him, extremely important to him, that his children should achieve. So we ended up with a situation where Chizi and Tochi went to the best schools in the world, both high school and college. That is the essence of Herbert. So Wigwe University is a great idea. Global standards. Nothing else that we will see like it in these parts for a long time. But Herbert, within the family, made sure that education, and not just his biological children. I can talk about Chim, I can talk about OJ, because he made sure that it wasn't just about him, it was about the community, the family, and he set those targets and he achieved it. Herbert's support extended actually beyond the immediate family. And I thought, we speak of him as a banker.
We speak of him as an entrepreneur. We think of him as a governance expert. But quintessentially, Herbert was a family man, a very committed family.
He presented in the workplace. We have people who had really close connections and close moments with him, and we look forward to hearing their own experience of Herbert as CEO. And so please help me welcome to the stage Efoli and Tunji.
Bank, Access Warriors, and the Fearless. My name is Tunji Lormai. I started working with Access Bank 2004, about 20 years ago. I started as an escort driver attached to Mr. Ike in Equity. I worked with him for 2 months to 3 before I was deployed to work with Mr. Herbert Wigwe, late Herbert Wigwe. Before I started working with him, there was an event I had to go for, which Madam Doreen Wigwe, we had to travel to Obosi in Anambra State. I led the convoy. Excuse me. On our way back, I don't know what she saw in me. She asked our driver then, late Kamal Yusuf, to park around Bagada and ask the escort driver to come. I got to her and she asked, "Can you work with Herbert?" I said yes, but I have some few concern. That was 2006 towards August, December. And I was supposed to get married around 2006 December. For the fact that I know the nature of work, how we work, the way we close. So I told him I have a concern. I told her I have a concern. The man said, "We will look into it." Some days after I started working with him, he traveled and he was supposed to come back on Virgin Atlantic, that early morning flight. I left my house around 8 o'clock, was going to work. I got into a popular event then in Lagos called One Chance. I was beaten and badly battered. I managed to get home. Tochi here found out that this was the situation. Immediately the father came in the morning. I'm sure Tochi mentioned to him. And while we were going to work that same morning, he spoke to the present CEO Access Holding, get my driver a car. And that was the beginning of the benefit a lot of junior staff today do benefit in Access Bank buying fully depreciated car, which are still very good on Nigerian roads. I later told him I want to further my studies. He said, "Sunji, if you really want to further your studies, make sure I don't look for you when I needed your service. Arrange the movement." I said, "Okay, sir." I did. I finished my first degree. And I told him I want to do my master's. All through the way, he's been there. Completing that program, one early morning, I went to thank him for everything, and he needed more. I told him now I'm a graduate. I needed something else to do rather than driving. He said, "Okay, we'll discuss it." Before I knew it, HR called that I should submit my documents. Within a short time, I was given a professional job in Access Bank. I work in administrative departments. Thank you. He said, "Okay, Tunji, now you've gotten a job. can you go and face your administrative job? I said, no, sir. I understand the benefits in between. I said, no. The nature of job I have, I can do other things. I can work with you and also do my administrative job. He said, okay, if you think you're fine. We went ahead. Appraiser comes. He's always supporting me. Family-wise, he's always there. I know one thing about him. You cannot easily approach him if you are not prepared. He might not be smiling, but he's ready to support you all through the way. At some point, I had some family issues. I wanted to talk to him. I will get close to his office, I will run back. I will be close, I will run back. The face is always very tight. I put on the courage another day and I went straight to him. Sir, this and this and this and this are what problem I have, and I want you to look into it. He said, okay, Tuji, it's okay. Before you know it, it's always there. He's a noble man. I had many opportunities through him, and today, is, you hear him say, we keep going. Lastly, in my conclusion, I worked with him for almost 20 years. He has never insulted me, but one day, he said, Tunji, are you freaking bonker? I don't know the meaning. I felt bad for some days. But before the week runs out, the late Eko Wigwe did something wrong. And he said the same. Chizzy, are you freaking bonker? I said, okay. I'm sure he doesn't have any arm. He doesn't have anything inside him. He's just trying to see that I do something right.
Please put your hands together for him properly. You can do a lot better.
Thank you so much, Tunji, for sharing a bit of 20 years working with Herbert. And now we have a Foley.